The air over northern Germany was supposed to be calm that winter morning in 1943. But as the B-17F, ye old pub, crossed the coastline, nothing felt calm to the men inside. They had flown missions before, but this one, deep into Bremen, one of Germany's most heavily defended industrial cities, felt different. "It'll be rough," someone had whispered on the flight line. But no one imagined how close the crew would come to never returning, or how an unexpected twist of humanity would save them. According to historical records, the 379th Bomb Group had been briefed before sunrise. Their target, the Focke-Wulf aircraft plant in Bremen. Anti-aircraft batteries around the city were notorious. Luftwaffe squadrons patrolled the skies. The airmen knew the risks. Inside ye old pub, 21-year-old pilot Lieutenant Charles Brown, flying his first mission as aircraft commander, tried to hide his nerves. His crew, average age barely 20, settled into their positions. Engines roared to life. Frost clung to the tarmac. And with a thunderous lift, the bomber joined the formation heading east over the North Sea. For the first hour, the flight went smoothly. Sunlight glinted off the aluminum wings of the B-17s. But as the target area approached, the sky ahead shifted from pale blue to a shimmering haze. Then the haze erupted. German flak gunners opened fire with deadly precision. Black bursts engulfed the formation. Shrapnel tore through the air like a swarm of metal bees. And one of those bursts struck ye old pub. The explosion hit the nose, shattering plexiglass and wounding the bombardier. Another shell ripped through the fuselage, tearing open the tail. Over half the control cables were severed. Brown felt the bomber lurch violently. "We're hit hard," he shouted, gripping the control column with both hands. They pressed on anyway. The bomb run had to be completed, but no one knew what waited for them after they dropped the bombs. Seconds after releasing their payload, the bomber began to fall behind the formation. Every B-17Crew's worst nightmare. Stragglers were easy prey. The Luftwaffe pounced. Historical accounts describe at least a dozen fighters, Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, attacking in waves. They came head-on, from behind, from above, guns blazing. Their tracers stitched the sky with fire. The tail gunner was knocked unconscious. The oxygen system failed. The engine sputtered. Brown fought the controls, but the B-17 was losing altitude, bleeding speed, and coming apart. Inside, it looked like a scene from a nightmare. Blood on the floor, freezing air blasting through the open nose, smoke from damaged engines drifting through the fuselage. The crew was wounded, dazed, barely conscious. And still the fighters came. Incredibly, ye old pub stayed airborne. The damaged B-17 absorbed hit after hit, but the airframe refused to die. By the time the fighters finally broke off, the bomber looked more like floating wreckage than an aircraft. Brown tried to assess their options. The nearest Allied territory was across the North Sea. Parachuting was possible, but half the crew were too injured to jump. "We stay together," Brown said quietly. The crippled bomber turned toward home, but the Luftwaffe wasn't finished. As ye old pub struggled out of Bremen's airspace, a lone German fighter pilot, Franz Stigler, an ace with more than 20 victories, spotted the crippled bomber limping alone. He prepared to fire, but as he closed in, he saw something that stunned him. Through the torn fuselage, he glimpsed badly wounded airmen tending to each other. The bomber's guns hung limp unmanned. The tail was shredded. One engine was dead. Another was smoking. Stigler later said it looked like a ghost plane. According to post-war interviews, Stigler remembered a lesson from his commanding officer. A pilot who shot at an enemy in a parachute, or helpless, had no honor. Instead of firing, Stigler made a decision that defied both logic and military protocol. He flew up alongside the bomber's wing. Inside ye old pub, the crew braced for death. They were too damaged to fight back. But Stigler didn't open fire. He held his position, staring across the few yards separating his fighter from the shattered bomber. For a long moment, neither side moved. Then Stigler gestured. "Turn back. Go home." Brown, confused and terrified, realized the German pilot was escorting them, shielding them from anti-aircraft guns along the German coast. The two aircraft flew together, enemy and enemy, over one of the deadliest front lines in Europe. When they reached the North Sea, Stigler gave a final nod, peeled away, and disappeared. Brown and his crew were too stunned to speak. But they weren't safe yet. Crossing the sea was brutal. The bomber's damaged engines struggled against headwinds. Ice formed on the wings. Inside, wounded crew members drifted in and out of consciousness. Brown fought to keep altitude. He had almost no controls left. The B-17 bucked like a dying animal. But mile by mile, they crept westward. Finally, the white cliffs of England appeared through the haze. Brown guided the bomber toward an emergency field. Landing gear malfunctioned. Instruments flickered, but he brought the plane down, skidding across the runway in a shower of sparks. When the bomber finally stopped, ground crews stared in disbelief. No one understood how the aircraft, or the men inside, were still alive. Brown simply said, "We made it." For decades, neither pilot knew the other had survived the war. Brown reported the incident, but Stigler's act, had it been discovered, could have led to court-martial or execution. So the story faded into the background of wartime history. Then, in the late 1980s, Brown began searching for the man who spared his crew. He found him, Franz Stigler, living quietly in Canada. When they met in 1990, the two veterans embraced like brothers. Stigler told Brown, "I didn't shoot you because I thought you were already dead." Their bond lasted the rest of their lives. According to their families, both men considered each other closer than blood. And the bomber mission that no one should have survived became one of the most extraordinary stories of humanity in the air war over Europe.